Welcome to the Bothell City Council meeting of March 20th, 2018. We do have a special presentation here. Troop 44368 is going to do the pledge, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, ladies, will you please just come up and make a line here, and you'll lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. Let's see here. All council members are present. Meeting agenda approval. Is there any changes to tonight's meeting agenda?
Do I have to pull the meeting minutes to make changes?
Yep.
Yeah, so I want to pull those.
Which ones? The February 20th and March 6th meeting minutes?
I believe it's March 6th.
Okay, pulled. Is there any other changes to tonight's meeting agenda? Seeing none. We have the review of the projected agenda. Is there any changes to the projected agenda? Oh, there we go. Councilmember McAuliffe?
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had your hand up. All right, no changes to the projected agenda. Review of public engagement opportunities. Just one, the community egg hunt, Saturday, March 31st from 9:30 to 11 a.m. at Doug Allen Sports Fields. And that's it for that. We have the proclamation for Earth Day, so I'm going to come down to the podium. Actually, we have two proclamations, and then we have a Women's History Month presentation here. So I'll start with Earth Hour. Could you get them on the... There we go. Okay. Whereas this is a proclamation of the City of Bothell, whereas the City of Bothell is participating in Earth Hour to promote sustainability and reduce energy usage in Bothell, and whereas Earth Hour promotes turning off lights for 1 hour once a year at 8:30 p.m. around the world, and whereas the city will promote the event and information about the program on social media, and whereas the City of Bothell will turn off all the City Hall lights for 1 hour from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. on March 24th, 2018. Now, therefore, I, Andrew John Rayum, the Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim Saturday, March 24th, 2018 at 8:30 p.m. as Earth Hour in the City of Bothell. And during this time, I ask residents and organizations to take time to participate in community activities without power for 1 hour. Next group, our superintendent is here to receive the proclamation. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Did you want to have it? No, okay. The public works for you. They're good. All right. Next is a proclamation. Chief, come on up. A proclamation of the City of Bothell for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is a time for us to reflect on how sexual violence is widespread and impacts every person in our community. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment harm our community, and statistics show 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be raped at some point in their lives. And whereas child abuse, that statistic always just, I'm sorry. Okay. Whereas child sex abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience a sexual assault before age 18. And whereas on campus, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted during their time in college. And whereas the Bothell Police Department has detectives who have received specialized training in the investigation of sexual assaults and who work in partnership with child forensic interview specialists during the investigation of sexual assault against children. And whereas the City of Bothell community promotes healing services for survivors of sexual assault by supporting our community partners, including the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center and Dawson Place Child Advocacy Center. And whereas as a community, we cannot afford to remain silent about this devastating and harmful crime, and we must work together to educate our community about sexual violence prevention, supporting survivors, and speaking out against harmful attitudes and actions. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Rayum, the mayor of the city of Bothell, do hereby proclaim April 2018 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the city of Bothell and encourage all of the residents to work together to eliminate cases of sexual assault. Chief, thank you for accepting this.
Thank you
Did you want to add?
Just briefly, as you can imagine, these are the worst crimes for both us to investigate, but even more for the victims and the families, particularly those of children. We take them very, very seriously. The positive thing that we have is we have the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, which is a national model, and we have Dawson Place, which if you ever have the opportunity to tour Dawson Place that's located up in Everett, it is a model for how we can put our arms around these victims, some of them, young victims, and support them from the very moment that they enter the system to when up through the investigation and the trial. It's really remarkable private-public partnership that really works. So, thank you.
Okay, and the next one we have is Women's History Month, and I thought I would just hand the floor over to Councilmember McAuliffe because this was her great idea. And she has a introductory statement to give.
I do. And thank you, Mayor. So International Women's Day was March 8th. This gives us an opportunity to recognize each and every one of you who has provided your service to the people of the city of Bothell. We come together as a community with your support through the arts, festivals, survival through a fire, Christmas, 4th of July, wine walks, and beer festivals. This is what makes our people in this community feel like they have a home and a place where they can work and live and enjoy each other. So when it's time for a volunteer, what I notice is you all raise your hand. And thank you very much for doing that. You make a big difference in our community. So tonight we'll recognize you.
Okay, so I have a, it's the same, I guess it's not really a plaque, but what are these certificates? City of Bothell, as part of Women's History Month, each person is hereby recognized for her social, economic, and cultural leadership in the city of Bothell. So I'm just going to call off the names and go ahead and come up here, and we'll see if I know your name to your face. That'll be fun. The first one is Cheryl Bosch, Brittany Caldwell. We were going to bring them all at the same time, sorry. So
Nope, that's
go ahead, come on up. Chief Cummings, Jerry Eagle, Lee Henderson, Brooke Knight, Jennifer Phillips, Michelle Reed, and those are the ones I have confirmed. Let's see if anybody else just didn't confirm. Nancy Pipinich, Leanne Tesorieri. Not here. Was Nancy here? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Leanne. Oh, we already did that one. Kim D'Angelo. Cheryl Stanford. You guys laughing at me over there? Lynn Asman. Carmen Dalziel. Kelly Snyder. All right, those are the ones that said they weren't going to be here. So, all right, let's see how we can do here. Nancy Pippin. All right, there you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheryl Bosch.
Who's that? Any clues? Thanks.
Thank you. Brittany Caldwell. Jerry Eagle. Brooke Knight. Thank you. Captain Phillips. Sharika, shake your hand. All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Come on, put your certificates up. Make it a mark.
Okay, let's see here. Now we're on to, oh, they got pictures. Oh, it's now ready for the joint meeting with the Northshore School District. So it's like an interrogation. Sorry about the setup, but go ahead, come and look down or look up at us while we look down at you. We'll just take a couple minutes for them to take their seats. You guys got name tags there too, so. All right. So I got to say, I've been doing this 6 years, and it's super hard to get us together, isn't it? It's a bunch of volunteers that do this on their free time. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. And one of these days, we can come to your meeting instead of you guys always having to come to ours. It'll be fair. So we had 3 things on our pick list. I don't know if you guys have a list of things that you're interested in talking about, but our 3 were field usage at the schools, elementary school site. Oh, the new elementary school site. There we go. And then the use of the levy money is like, what are you guys gonna do with that big roll of cash you just got from the community? Just kidding. So those are ours. Did you guys have any?
We did.
Okay. You guys got to use the thing will turn red when it's. There you go.
So one item would be as a follow-up to the great opioid community forum that you all hosted. It'd be just great to hear an update on the efforts you guys are continuing on that front as well. And then as we continue to experience growth, perhaps having a conversation about how we can long-term talk about it. There are some school districts in large cities, Seattle is an example, where school districts and the city government are forming partnerships to talk about long-term planning, sometimes just in general, sometimes with specific plots of land like Fort Lawson in Seattle. So just some general ideas, nothing that we have to take action on specifically today, but just raising the topic.
Okay.
Any other board members have any other?
One thing I think would be nice is if maybe we could do an update on some of the work that we were doing in the school district about our equity and diversity with respects to policy, committees, and student work. Thank you.
I just had a couple thoughts. We do school visits and parent meetings, and a topic that does come up is street safety, sidewalks, crosswalks, that kind of thing. And a lot of that, we have to direct those people to talk to you folks or whatever jurisdiction they're in, because it's not really something we do. I know we do track it, and so if there's any, if there's any projects that are kind of ongoing or being discussed around certain schools, it'd be nice to hear about that.
Okay. Anything else? Superintendent, you going to be okay with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to our superintendent. Nick, you got that on the back of your, where we're going to do projects? Okay, cool. We're ready for you.
There was just another kind of wondering that I had, and I had emailed Councilperson Zorns about the possibility of maybe doing some access to Wi-Fi in the city of Bothell. And so that was just another topic that we deal with respects to supporting our students with homework and access to computers, which the district's working to provide one-on-one computing devices. But oftentimes students will go home and not have access to the internet, so a lot of those tools are not as effective. So we're just wondering if maybe the city might have any thoughts about that. And I did notice that the city of Kirkland got a grant with Google to do free wireless in their downtown Peter Kirk Park and some other areas in their downtown. So I thought maybe it's something we could talk about as well. Thank you.
That sounds good. You guys came with all sorts of stuff. Well, since we're up here and you're down there, we're going to do ours first. Hope that's okay. So we'd love to hear about, so we met a bit ago about field usage, and I think it was kind of more pointedly that maybe we could do something where we partner and work on the school fields, and so they're nicer for the kids during the day, and then they'd be open to public use outside of school hours. So we were just curious if there was any follow-up on that, if there's any action on our end that needs to be done, if it's just not in anybody's court, if it died on the vine, that kind of thing.
So I know Robert Foster, our
interim executive director for support services met with your then parks director, who I don't believe is still your parks director.
Yeah, John Keats.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was John. Yeah, so I know they had begun meeting, and then I think when John left, I don't know if that conversation has continued.
Okay. So it's probably in our court then?
Yeah,
you're
if you have a
thinking?
new person for Robert to reach out to, or if you have a new parks person that could reach out to Robert, then I think we could maybe restart the conversation.
Okay. City manager, we good? Okay. All right. Now, see, we're easy up here. So the next one is the elementary school site. So I understand you guys got a levy to build a new school. And then our next item is the use of the rest of it, because I know it's not just the school, but we were curious about where that school siting is, if it's already sited, and what's the plan?
So, first of all, I'm not on Facebook, so I haven't been colluding. It's a funny situation. So we have two buildings that we're going to pay for out of our bond, actually three. We're adding on to Inglemore, we're adding some classroom space there. We are adding 30 classrooms between Skyview Middle and Canyon Creek Elementary, so almost a full school there. Half of that space will be for elementary usage and half for middle. Ideally, it may flux as populations ebb and flow. And then off of Maltby Road is a site that initially, in this bond, will be building an elementary school on that site. And then hopefully in 4 years, our voters will be as supportive as they were this time. We will be building a middle school there.
Would that be on the south side of Maltby or the north side of Maltby? Because I think that's our city limit.
North side. It's in
just-
Snohomish County.
Just right outside of us. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Then you don't want to give the crossroad of Maltby Road? Or?
Happy to give it if I knew it off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. And you guys know it? No? Okay. Just curious.
It's east. You go up Bothell Road, you turn east on Maltby, and
I
Head
think it was
start.
around 51st,
Which one?
about around 51st.
51st.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's that? Okay. All right, cool. And then I guess we already kind of went into a little detail about the rest of the levy. So the improvements at the two other schools as well, Inglemore and
But
Skyline.
To clarify, we ran three measures. We ran a bond and bonds are for buildings. And then we ran two levies. One levy is for technology. So Director Kogan referenced that we will be increasing the devices that are available to our students. And then we have, basically, while the name changed, it was a renewal of an existing levy that pays for things that the state doesn't cover, including special education. They don't fully fund special ed. Any counseling that's outside of what the state prescribes. So the state, Core 24, right, 5 periods is what the state pays for. We offer at a minimum 6. We're hoping to get to more than that because students are going to need, at a minimum, 24 credits to graduate. Another example would be counseling services at our high school. The state will pay, I think it's like a 1 to 1,300 student ratio. It's pretty extreme. We obviously provide more than that, so that will come out of our levy. So basically, it's not, you're not going to see much difference because it's just renewing what we're paying for that the state doesn't currently pay for.
So, Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you. So when I looked at your renewal of your levy, I thought I saw some safe schools kind of language in there. Is that correct?
So we do have $13 million in our bond for safety and security. We will be having a community meeting at NPAC at Bothell High on April 24th. So all are welcome to attend and share your thoughts on how we can keep our schools safe.
Will that
6
also,
o'clock, 6 o'clock, NPAC, April 24th.
will that also include, I imagine it will include students as well, so that they can also have a voice?
Oh, absolutely, students are
Good.
welcome, yes.
Good. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I have a vested interest in Inglemore, so I wondered if you could elaborate on what's coming there.
So it is a performing arts venue. We're adding some classroom space for music, classroom space. The Performing Arts Center at Inglemoor is not equitable with our other 3 high schools. It doesn't have the seating capacity, and it's just an older one, so that's part of it. It's also not as ADA compliant as our newer performing arts venues, so we need to get that up to speed. And then the most exciting part for those in Kenmore is the traffic mitigation that we'll be working on to make it a little easier to get in and out.
So no renovations or anything of the existing building?
No, and part of that is that the state will not provide part of the funding if you have touched the building within the last 30 years, and Inglemoor, it hasn't been 30 years since it was last renovated, so if we touch any of the existing buildings, then we don't qualify for state matching funds.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember McNeil?
When would that 30 years be at?
2022 bond, so 4 years, then we can start talking about doing that. It's just going to depend on the facility, the state of all of our facilities and where they're at, and what voters, as you all know, what voters are going to be willing to support, and growth, how many more buildings we are going to need. So it'll be a conversation. Again, we'll invite community members to be part of both our capital projects and our enrollment demographics, and we will be
So about
discussing all of that in the
2022?
future. 2022 will be the next bond, and there will be lots of opportunity to discuss what will be in that.
Okay, and the performing arts upgrades, will those be useful for the middle schools and elementary schools as well?
Yes, that is the plan.
So they'll be able to do their choirs and things like that from
Yes.
all different levels? Okay.
Oh, you may add on to that.
Just to provide a little perspective on the helpfulness of having a theater at the high school. My children attend Woodinville High School, and as part of that remodel, a theater was added. And it's open to elementary music programs, to middle school, obviously. I was there for my son to perform, and right before his band performance, it was being used for an 8th grade parent information night for incoming families to the high school. And it's several nights a week, it's booked solid, and so it's nice to have that opportunity in the Inglemoor feeder pattern for all the schools to be able to access for not just music, but for information meetings as well.
Okay, thank you. And then you alluded to a safety measure.
So in the bond, there was allocated $13 million for safety and security, and so we are going out to our community on April 24th. 6 p.m. in the NPAC, asking for input of what's the most useful way and effective way to spend that money.
And are you going to be surveying the community at all on what they feel, how they feel about the safety within the schools?
In addition to the meeting, I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a possibility. I think what we've also done is we've met with the police chiefs of the 3 jurisdictions, Kenmore, Woodinville, and Bothell, actually Monday afternoon, on a number of topics. And one of those is we're also going to be hiring a security manager for the district that will be also our point person for implementing those safety dollars, because I think there's a tension, right, between input and kind of what we would like, and then sort of that professional view on what works best. So we have to find sort of that sweet spot there, right, taking a lot of input and then also pivoting to folks who really know security work well and can provide us advice on that, so.
Thank you.
Director Hayes, I think you mentioned, and I might have heard you wrong, but did you say the state doesn't pay for special education?
It does not fully fund it.
Okay, but it does pay some.
Some.
Okay, just checking. I was like, what? Councilmember Olson?
Yeah, I was just curious on the timeline of the construction projects that you have, completion dates or?
So we don't have a firm deadline on the performing arts venue in the Inglemoor. That's a newer plan, but we are hoping to open both the Malfi Elementary School and the additional classrooms at Skyview in 2021?
2020.
2020.
Fall of 2020.
Fall of 2020. Those 2 will open up.
And I'd like to add that those projects were planned in advance and permitting's been already in progress, and so they expect to be shovel-ready in May of this year.
No.
Those two projects, that's the Mulvey Skyview, is the Mulvey property as well as the Skyview Canyon Park, Canyon Creek, excuse me.
Councilmember McAuliffe?
First of all, congratulations on passing your levy. That was a huge undertaking, and you did a great job. And I know you didn't get great numbers, but it shows the community really supports the work you're doing. So I want to really tell you how much I appreciate that, because that's why they voted for you, or for the levy. One of my big concerns, of course, is school safety, and I've been working on that for a great many years. And what I really know that I hear about is that there's got to be communication between our mental health people, our schools, our police, our fire, and all of those people, so that when we can get early intervention into a child's life who is having a difficult time, that's what we really need. So I hope you're all talking to the people at police, fire, mental health, because none of us can do it alone. But when there's a message out there, we need to all be communicating. I hope that that's on your agenda.
Yeah, and I just have to give a shout out to Police Chief Cummings, because she has been amazing to work with. We can't thank her enough for her responsiveness and really nice communication with the district.
And also our Navigator program can be something that could be helpful in this as well. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not. Anybody else?
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, we have, Chief, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say to Dr. Reed, that's the MHP that I was referring to. That's sometimes the Navigator and MHP go hand in hand.
Right, thanks.
Councilmember Zorns?
Well, I'll keep it brief. I substitute in the Northshore School District for grades K through 12, and love the kids, love the staff. But as a substitute who goes into a variety of settings, there is a lack of uniformity on like how doors lock, especially with portables, if I can say that. And so I would love to have a conversation, and maybe, what is it, April 24th? That would be the time to have that. But as you know, I know that if we were in a crisis situation, whether with someone coming in with a gun or attacking kids, the mama bear would come out and made to protect these kids, even though I don't see them every single day. So I know that I would put myself between kids and harm, but it would be kind of nice to have tools in my toolbox so that I feel like I can do that job effectively. So maybe April 24th we can have that conversation.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, your guys' turn. I wrote your list down, but do you have your own list over there? Whichever one you want to take first.
Go for it.
Sure, I can talk about our equity work. Thank you, Director Kogan. Number one, I want to thank Mayor Realm and I believe Deputy Mayor Dewar for attending the Turanga Performance and Presentation Sunday. Our Indian community put on quite a festival from noon to about 6 with food and so forth. And it was just another example, I think, of our community celebrating traditions and cultures and dancing, and just, it was really beautiful, and I appreciate you being there, and I know the community, our children appreciated all of us being there, right, and their families. So that was a lovely event. I think that we were really pleased with the turnout from the community for our Black Girl in Suburbia filming, our screening several Saturdays ago that was hosted by our Diversity and Equity Committee. It's really, I think, started a lot of conversations across the community and not just within the district, which have been real positive. The committees continue to work. We're also looking at holidays for our upcoming calendar to be more thoughtful around our religious holidays and what we mark and what we don't, and what we schedule over the top of and what we don't. So there's a lot of work, I think, to make sure that our actions are as inclusive as our words, right? So I don't know if the board members want to share other points of that work, but it's really, I think, kind of exciting right now.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. I just wanted to add, because we had talked before about kind of Bothell coming together with some diversity work to try and improve situations within our community. And so I just wanted to provide an update that the school district has taken on that task. And since we met and talked about that, we've established a policy on equity that's really a model policy, in my opinion. Information was garnered from best practice around the country, and we developed policy that's a really strong policy on equity, diversity, and within the school district. And then we also developed an equity committee where we've got staff members and community members and students on a committee to really focus on issues within our district to improve, the workings of the district for all of our students and families. And then subsequent from that, now we've instigated at each of the high schools, and I'm not sure about middle schools, but a diversity equity committee.
All schools.
All schools, even elementary then. And so these are the kind of things that we're doing to kind of bring this topic to the front of mind for our students and really kind of support that work. So I just wanted to update that since that was something important we talked about at our last meeting. Thank you.
It definitely is. Let me just add something real quick. So I remember that when we got together. I don't know how many years ago that was now. And it's hard for the city to take on some initiative like that individually because the city's not that big, quite frankly. I have gone around the region toting about the school district doing what you guys have done, and nobody else that I know of. I don't know if you guys probably know better than I would about other school districts that have taken on that task and have done so much work on it. I think you're alone. That's what I think. I really commend you guys, and I think it's really pretty awesome that at least in the east side, you guys are leading the way in equity and diversity initiatives. So you guys are looking at me like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. Just go with it. Yeah, you're the best. Don't worry about it. So I'll hand it off to Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you. And one of the things I really think is important, and I think all of your high schools probably do this, but Bothell High School has each child engaged, whether it be in math or arts or sports or whatever, but that whole goal is to have every child engaged. I think that's critically important because once you engage that child, they will really have a place to be and feel that they can contribute. But I'm also going to ask Dr. Reed if you'll talk about, if you want to, only if you want to, the humanitarian award that you're considering.
Oh, thank you, Councilmember McAuliffe. Thank you for bringing that up. We, I would say 30 years ago, as a school district, had the C.P. Johnson Award, which was named after one of our very first pioneers on equity and diversity in the school district, C.P. Johnson. And his late wife, Dorothy, as well, was a special education teacher for many years and then a director in Shoreline. They've since both passed away, and for 20 years, we had an award where 2 children in every school were honored for humanitarian characteristics. And then in the last 10 years, just sometimes things have run their course a little bit, but what we're going to be doing, and we approved this as a board recently, and the Diversity and Equity Committee is excited about this as well, is we're bringing that award back. And we're going to be renaming it the C.P. and Dorothy Johnson Award, Humanitarian Award. And I think what it really will do is highlight, again, 2 young people from each school who demonstrate those characteristics. So it's I think a positive way of reinforcing the behaviors we want to see, rather than continuing to try to, scold or punish behaviors we don't want to see. So we're really excited about that. And Councilmember McAuliffe brought some of the historical artifacts from the prior celebration. And I know our board and principals are excited to kind of get back to our roots, because this district and community has been part of this equity journey for a long time. And it's nice to build on our history, which has been, I think, really positive in that regard. So thank you for mentioning that.
And thank you for bringing it forward again. I think in this day and time, that is so important that we recognize children who really care about others.
Right. Yeah, we're excited about that work.
Councilmember McNeil, sorry, wanted to talk about equity and diversity.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's been a an honor to be part of the program from the onset when it first started, the visioning process when we first talked about it from council to the school district, and seeing how far it's come. I think it's very important work, but I think it's work that we need to do a better job of getting out in the community that we are doing the work. Because often people ask me the question, what are you doing? So while we know what we're doing behind the scenes, a lot of the community doesn't know what that work is. I applaud the school district for all the different initiatives and things that they're bringing forward. One of the things that I hear as a coach from youth is all the things that are happening within the schools, the little programs, the choir programs, the field and track, and seeing all the kids out and playing. And what I'm learning is that it's what I don't know that's the problem. We had a Daddy Donut Day, or fathers come to school with their kids day. And Captain Johnson with the Bothell Police Department was up there, and we were talking about Watchdog program. And what's interesting is I didn't know much about it until I went to the event. But how cool was that to be a part of something, a little program that the school has at an elementary school, where we can go out and be part of a program that comes and mentors these kids during the day. But as a council member, as a parent, I didn't know about that program until it was brought to my attention. So that's just one of the things I was talking about making sure that we know what's within the schools, how we can help. The reason I bring up the Watchdog program is because I had the opportunity recently to go to my kids' school. I did this last year as well. But what I witnessed was, if we're paying attention, we'll see the kids that are by themselves. If we're there, if we're on the playgrounds, parents, teachers, if we pay attention, we'll see those kids that are sitting by themselves, and we have an opportunity to possibly change their life by just going up and saying, how's your day going? So to me, the program is much more, the equity and diversity program is much more than just equity and diversity. It's inclusion. Doesn't matter if it's about the color, the race, or ethnicity of a person. It can be, kids that are much larger, overweight kids, kids that are tall, kids that are short. Doesn't matter what it's about. What matters is that we're making a difference, and if we take the time to pay attention, that's what's going to matter the most. So I commend and applaud the school district for what they're doing. I'm proud to be sitting on that committee. I look forward to the great work ahead. And I'm hopeful that we can get that information out to the community of what you guys are really doing there, because I think it's steadfast and very important. So thank you.
Thanks, James.
You want to say, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention briefly the Black Girl in a Suburbia movie. So my son was incentivized by his teacher to go to it, and as a white boy, I don't think he knew what to expect. And when I picked him up, first of all, it was packed. It was so. There were so many cars, it was unbelievable. I couldn't go in because I had to do something, but when he came out, he was really, I think it really hit him, and that's an opportunity that he hadn't had before. So I thank you for that, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So.
I'm starting to get jealous. Maybe I want to be on the school board someday. Okay. We talk about pipes and cops and fire hoses. Okay, so we got that one done. Sidewalks and, oh wait, we skipped over the opioid forum. You want to wait till that later on that one? No?
I think we were interested maybe in the city's next steps and how we could partner with you.
She's ready. City Manager.
So thank you very much. We did, probably 6 months ago or so, we had just an exceptional forum on the opioid crisis here, specifically in Bothell. We had Bothell residents come and not only be in the audience, 75, 80 people, but some members of our community that have been touched by this crisis. From that, we continue to do work. Obviously, the police department is actively engaged, and the chief brought up our Navigator program, and that's a pilot program that we're working with that's funded through King County to have a mental health specialist with our police officers out in the field And so instead of the enforcement aspect, when they come across someone with a mental illness or a substance abuse issue or homelessness, that rather than an enforcement result, that navigator, that social worker is able to connect them to resources, basically navigate them through the system. And we have instances where they've helped families with a suicidal teen, or they've helped a homeless family that's in a car with children get them into housing. Navigating the system can be very challenging. And so far, it's just been a really successful program for us. It's only 20 hours a week right now, and so we're working diligently, not only with the City Council, but with the county and other opportunities to not only continue that funding, but hopefully expand the program and make it something that culturally is part of who we are as a police department and as a city. So that's one aspect. Another is, over this last almost year now, we've been working with a graduate student in public health with the Snohomish County Health District on looking at the opioid crisis in Bothell. And she did an extensive research paper on what we could do, some steps that we could take at the local level that potentially the City Council could look at as we look at the 2019-2020 budget. Very helpful. Did a lot of research, work with Snohomish County Health District, and so there's opportunities for us there as well. We have our own municipal court, and we're looking at opportunities rather than incarceration to look at opportunities for diversion and what that could look like and the cost savings and the benefits of that. So those are all the kinds of things that we're looking at for the future year. The council contributes almost $500,000 towards social services, health services to our community. It's a very important contribution. We at the local level don't do social services, and so it's important that we stay connected and we support the agencies that do, and that's one of the ways that the council does that. So that's kind of sort of the direction that we're heading, and we continue to have the conversations and want to be a part of the solutions.
There's one additional thing too with the Snohomish County Health District. And I think they said that they came here and told us they have curriculum, and everybody loves to give you guys curriculum to add to your already not over-the-top curriculum portfolio, but they were working on something with school districts, and I don't know if they reached out to you, but we've donated, well, not donated, well, kind of a donation. We've contributed to the Snohomish County Health District. They were kind of surviving on fumes, I would say. And so they've been very responsive to, especially cities like Bothell that have came to their aid. So if there are things that you guys would like to see integrated into the schools, I would encourage you to call them and tell them that I told you to call and that I remember what we did to help them. So perhaps they could help you guys and all of our children, so. Okay, anything else on the opioid forum? Do you guys feel like you got the answer you're looking for from us? Okay. Let's see here. My note isn't so good, but it says something about land acquisition. Yeah, will you explain that one a little bit more?
And this is just a brainstorming topic. So as our region continues to grow, I don't know if you guys have heard the latest numbers, but year to year, when we opened our doors this September, we had 700 extra students that we didn't know were coming as of that previous June. So it's just as a way of just keeping this to the forefront. At a state conference, it was, or actually it was down in Olympia, we ran into some school board members from Seattle, and they created a visioning statement with the city of Seattle. So this isn't a contract or a commitment specifically, but basically a statement, a strategic partnership in terms of common goals when it comes to growth. And it was focused specifically on Seattle Center and the Fort Lawton area around Discovery Park. And so it's just something I thought might be helpful to consider, as you do your long-term planning. If it would be helpful, it might be helpful for us from a long-term planning situation, to sit down and talk about some common strategic goals, and that way we continue to optimize our resources as we work together, as our region does so well.
So we've talked about that before just a little bit. I'm just curious, has there been good communication between the city about our forecasts? And because we checked last time and that was true, I just wanted to check since we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think so. I
Who-
think so.
what are
Yeah, I
those-
think so. Yeah, it's not from a situation of deficit. It's not that we haven't had great information on the ground. We do have even consultants that come and check on building permits all the time. This would be more a long-term vision if there was a long-term development similar, again, around Seattle Center. They're looking to redo Memorial Stadium and look at some opportunities there for school buildings. And just if there was a large project, maybe a major strategic change you might be thinking about in terms of zoning or just long-term outlook. It's again, it's not a contract or anything, but a way of perhaps being strategically forward-thinking in case there's if this growth continues and there has to be a shift in terms of how your zoning or planning or any processes go. It would be helpful for us, honestly, on the beginning to be part of the conversation just from a visioning standpoint.
Deputy Mayor?
So I can think of one. We're at the beginning stages of a Canyon Park master plan. And so I'm wondering if we need to reach out and have someone from the school district be a part of that stakeholder group.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That might be an example just to be able to provide input, because Maywood Hills and Canyon Park Middle School, already knowing what our forecasts are being since we just redid our boundaries, it would be helpful to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. Anytime we can kind of get together and share our knowledge and kind of be thinking long-term about what would help both of us, I think that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think that's a great idea. It's really about, I think, it's about urban planning, right? And you talk about fields as an example of how, population growth is not going to slow down for probably never here. We're trailing San Francisco probably by a decade, and that just, we're just going to get bigger. So I think the more and more we have opportunities to do the vision planning, which it's about fields, it's about more schools, it's about a swimming pool potentially, it's about that kind of those community assets that the school district has and the cities, and especially Bothell, have, and how do we coordinate? How do we best use what we have more efficiently? Field sharing, et cetera, facility sharing. And then are we planning together so that we ensure that we have enough capacity as we continue on? So, I think it's just a great idea. It's like a vision, strategic plan of what we want the community to look like in 20 years from now. And are we preserving lands for those types of things too? So it would be a good effort if we could do that.
Councilmember Agnew? No, I'm sorry, Councilmember McAuliffe?
Thank you. In my very early days of serving on Northshore School Board, Lee Blakely, the superintendent, who back in the 70s bought many pieces of property that now your schools reside on today, because he was a forward thinker. So being forward thinking on where the field should go, where the next school should go, buying the property or securing the property before it becomes so expensive, which it's becoming, that we can no longer afford to do it. Also, with the GMA and our urban growth issues, it's very difficult to stay within that boundary and still be affordable. So I know how difficult this is. But I'm going to bring up one thing I think is really important. First of all, I think visioning is very important, but one of the things you have to do when you do it is you have to know, can you pay for it and how? So those two have to go together in my mind. But the one issue I would like to bring up that I think we all should work on together is our homeless students. And I know the number in North Shore is very small, but if you're 10, 20, or 100, it's a big number for each kid. So the city does give some money to support the homeless program. You also have a coordinator, is it, of homeless? I'm not sure, is that what I call it? I call that title? So maybe working together, we could do a really good job of making sure that the city and the school district work together so that we really address the concerns that we have for those kids.
Councilmember McNeil?
Yeah, and I would definitely echo what Councilmember McAuliffe said about the homelessness. We often hear statistics as percentages, not in direct physical numbers, but one homeless child is one too many. So we need to talk specific numbers. When you talk about fields and stuff like that, you're speaking my language. I'm born and raised in this area, and we are fast losing the field space to get our kids out and recreate and do the things that they need to do. Not saying we don't have them, but we can do a better job of it. When I grew up, played for elementary school, played for middle schools. Back then it was called junior highs, and high school. And all of those schools had programs, sports programs within the schools. And since the programs were pulled out of the schools and became club sports, the fields kind of didn't really go anywhere. They just kind of stayed the same. So I would offer up working with the city. Cities might not have all the money, but there's partnerships there with cities, nonprofit organizations outside. Some of the youth sports groups can help you there as well. I often think, what do we need to look forward, planning for forward growth? We are part of the Growth Management Act, so we hear quite often that the numbers are going to go to 1.8 million new residents by 2050 in our region. We just recently heard statistics of 830,000 housing units will have to be built by 2050. That's enormous. So we might not see all 100% of that growth here, but as you talk about, the deputy mayor brought up Canyon Park growth area and what we're doing there and the planning that we're doing and having you involved in that, I would say that you should reach out as well and be part of the Growth Management Act that's happening regionally, so you understand what's going on regionally. Because to me, what I think is happening, what I see happening is housing's getting more expensive around us here. So people are moving further out. People are also staying longer. They're aging in place. So the dynamic of how we live, 1.5, 2.5 people per household, is changing. The community is changing as a whole. So what does that mean for just as a neighborhood that has 30 kids that get on a bus that are going to elementary school today? 10 to 15 years from now, they'll be in high school, and there will be no kids coming from that community that are going to elementary school. So there's a whole lot of planning I don't understand, but I think if you're part of that growth management process, you can kind of understand how the growth is going to occur. Because I think, Deputy Mayor, we were sitting in a meeting, I think they were pretty much within 1% of their targets for the last 30 years. So if you can somehow plan for that, I think that that'll do some good stuff for us.
So I had a couple ideas. So every 2 years we do capital along the vein of trying to coordinate and work together with what our visioning. So we have a rhythm to the city, right? You've been here 6 years. It's just like, oh, here it comes again. So we have a major comprehensive plan update every 4 years, I believe, and we just finished our most recent one. I'm looking at you because you don't have a planning director here. No, or is it 6 years? It's every 6 years. But we just finished our major conservative plan update in 17, didn't we? No, 2015. I'm getting.
We didn't do a major one in 17.
Oh, okay. I did one at some point in the last 6 years, so.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. So that'd be a good opportunity to engage with you guys about, school infrastructure and, joint facility type of conversations. Every 2 years we do our budget, and part of that's our capital facilities plan update. We always update that. That'd kind of be more of like kind of what's coming down the pipe right now. But the bigger one would probably be the major comprehensive plan update for the city. And then Deputy Mayor mentioned the Canyon Park Master Plan. That we do have a stakeholder group, and I don't know if you guys are on it. It's not a exclusive group. It's kind of their work is completed at this point because we had like a early phase project and we finished the first phase. So there's the second phase where we started a bake sale, but we need about $750,000 more to get the phase 2 started. So it's going to be a little while before we have that funding, but that would be another place where it'd be great to have some representation from the school district, whether it's Bob, what was his name? Foster. Bob, yeah. Does he go by Robert? That's probably why he looks at me like that when I say Bob. Oops. anyhow, just to throw in some ideas, I think it's a great idea to do that though, because I've been at a table with 20 people there and like, this is great. We have this master plan, and the water guy put his hand up and said, you got to build a water tower at least 65 feet tall to get water to that building, and it's just crickets, right? Everybody's like, whoa, where are we going to stick that thing? So it's really important to try to keep everything in mind when you're master planning, and obviously school facilities, and we have joint interests in making sure some facilities are well distributed throughout our community. So, okay, ticking off your list here.
I'll just feed on that. We have actually multiple elementary schools right there in Canyon Park, Crystal Springs being one of them that's already maxed out. And so certainly one of the ways that we can work together is we can't permit any more portables there. We struggle to get the number of buses through because the driveway is not long enough. So definitely working together, and if we're talking 1.8 million more people in the next 30-some years, that's 300,000 more school-age children that we're going to need to have facilities. So it's not only just us being aware of what's coming, but it's thinking outside the box of what does an elementary school look like, what are the needs, how do transportation, buses, that's a lot more buses going through Frank Love, Crystal Springs, West Hill, Canyon Park, right? So that's a lot more things on the road, parents dropping off. And so it's just, we're going to need to make sure that we're in good communication as we add all those people to the area.
Okay, so we'll move on to sidewalks and safety. And I've got Nick Stroop here. Oh, maybe we even have a transportation engineer. There we go. You guys are gonna get the real story here.
So we have some key staff members here. I'm Nick Stroop. I'm the Deputy Director of our operations. But we also have Jason Torrey here, who's our supervising capital project engineer, who led the process sort of early on. One thing, though, that I was thinking just as we were sitting here would be a good opportunity for us to reach out and maybe come to one of your school board meetings and give you a brief presentation on where we're at, you know, kind of where we started from, where we're going, and some of our future projects that we're really, really excited about. I can't say enough about the PTSA efforts. You know, we partnered with a number of the PTSAs in the local school district, and just the amount of participation that we got when we were going out for a levy was phenomenal. So I was really, really excited to be able to go out and talk to all those PTSAs and just really see that support that came from that group. But I would just say that I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to come to one of your meetings and do a brief presentation. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Thanks. Thank you, Nick. Council members, school board members, director, thank you. So in response to our Safe Streets levy that was passed over a year ago, we conveyed a task force to try to get a handle on all the pedestrian and needs around the schools. So we reached out to all the schools and got volunteers from many of the schools as well as the school district staff themselves to put together a prioritized list and find out what are the real issues at each of the schools. And that task force met every other week for about 6 months, and at the end of that process, we came together and had a prioritized list of all the pedestrian projects that we needed throughout the city, and we had a top project identified for each school. And so right now, we're currently under construction for several of them. We're also going out grants right now to apply for more grants to fund more projects in the future. Some of the projects that are under construction right now, there's a sidewalk on 234th to provide a sidewalk and safe access to Shelton View. We're under the design phase, and we got grants for a sidewalk on 188th from Pop Keeney up to the high school, which was the #1 request that we always get from everybody. That project was grant funded, and it's under design right now. We're also got grant funding for a sidewalk on 7th and 88th. That one we're in negotiations with the funding agency to get a pedestrian path along that route, so we can tie in 240th all the way down to the elementary school there, West Hill. So, and then, so we've got a prioritized list of all these projects. If there's any other projects that the school board or staff or parents are ever interested in or think is a priority, I encourage them to contact us. We have a pretty vibrant site on the city's website for safe routes to schools. And I think that's about it, unless you have other questions on specific projects or programs.
I just want to repay the earlier compliments. This is really also unusual that you guys are so forward-thinking and working with where to place your sidewalks. That is not typical, that cities work with schools of making sure that there is safe walking for kids to school. So thank you for being thinking of our kids and working together and listening. That's just, it's really, I'm so pleased. Thanks.
So Kenmore and Woodinville haven't done that? Don't worry, they don't watch our shows. All right. Did you guys have any other questions for Tori? No, or Nick?
So again, I'll just say that we'll set up a time where we can come to one of your future meetings and give you an update. And we've actually been talking about trying to reach out to you to do that. So tonight, we weren't ready to do that, but it's a perfect opportunity for us. So love to come and speak with you. Great.
Yeah, thank you. So, the Shelton View project is one that we've been asked about at events as well, and the sidewalk up from Pop Keeney up to the high school, that's something, again, we're commonly, that's why we were all nodding at those, because we've heard from them. So thank you for being so responsive. I'd just like to echo what President Hayes said. It's incredibly helpful. So, and now there's a lovely website with lots of information, but I think an informational presentation at a board meeting would be really appreciated by parents and the district staff.
Deputy Mayor?
I just wanted to give staff an opportunity to talk about the small pot of money we have for sidewalks and what we've been able to achieve with matching grants or beyond matching grants, because it's pretty significant. I was really shocked.
So Jason's going to come up because the numbers are pretty significant. Like you said, we had a very small amount of money set aside, but really that was seed money that was set aside for matching grants. And we've been able to, I believe, secure about $2 million in grants for the sidewalk projects that we're talking about right now. So, that's really exciting. But Jason might be able to give a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers, but as Nick said, it's $2 million amongst those three projects I mentioned, 188th, 7th and 88th, and then, what was the third one? 19th, that's right, up by Canyon Park Junior High is the other project. That project's currently under design too. So we currently have about $600,000 annually for all our sidewalks, and we've obviously done better than that with our grant application. So this is another grant season right now that comes up about every 2 years or so. So we're applying again for more projects.
And then also on our operations side, we are very focused around the schools, looking at the walking routes. Again, I have 3 children that are going through the school system right now, and they're in 3 different schools. One in high school, one at Canyon Park, and one at West Hill. So I get a lot of feedback, both personally and professionally, about where these things should go. But we've been out, we've inventoried all the areas around the schools that are currently in the city of Bothell. We know where the problem areas are. When someone brings us an issue, we go out and meet with them. We try to be as responsive as we can so that we can, go out there and make it safer for the kids. That's why we exist. We exist for the safety of the kids and our residents. So we're excited about this program and excited to continue to partner with the school district.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that that task force it wasn't only looking at capital big projects, but it was, getting out and talking to the schools to find out what the real issues were at the schools. Was there maintenance issues? Was there a simple hedge we could trim back to make it more visible? Was it an enforcement issue? So part of this task force, we involved our maintenance staff, we involved our traffic group, which does crosswalks and the flag program that you've probably seen around, as well as enforcement, and had a police officer with the traffic group attend the task force meeting. So it was really a multi-pronged approach to see how to improve the safety around the schools. So.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilmember McAuliffe?
Thank you. And just one last comment. I'm very pleased that 188th is going to have a safer route from the high school down to Popkini. But I also know that we have to address the idea, the thought of, for our football games, where is our parking? Because people really, for years and years, a multitude of years, all want to come back and watch Bothell High School, Woodinville High School, and Ingeborg's games. The adults want to come back. They all want to see their schools, and we really don't have enough parking. So we have to kind of work together on that one. Maybe we'll have a park and ride, and maybe it can all work together.
You guys could build some structured parking right next to Popkini. Just kidding. It's cheap. Don't worry
I
about
have to
it.
be honest, I direct everyone to this parking garage when they ask where to park.
That's what I do too. Yeah, we always like to make that plug. That's free. You can use it, and you built it, or the public paid for it. So, all right, everybody else good on safe streets? And did you guys have more questions on safe streets and sidewalks? We're good. Okay. Let's see here. Access to Wi-Fi. I'd love to hear about this story. What happened with Kirkland and.
Yeah, so we are always trying to be creative and thoughtful about how we could improve the school experience for our students and families. And, the ability to access wireless at home is critical for many of our students. I know by the time you're in high school especially, so much of the work is done with Google Docs and internet access to do research and prepare presentations. So it's just a tool that our students need in high school, but also to prepare them for college and careers in the future. Internet access is just critical in all of our work. So we're always trying to find ways to address the fact that some students are at a disadvantage if they don't have access to tools or Wi-Fi. So we've talked about various things. Could we put Wi-Fi hotspots on school buses and park them in certain areas of the city or the school district in the evenings to allow access to Wi-Fi? And so as we're doing creative thinking, I came across an article on the internet that showed global cities that have free Wi-Fi. And it was inspiring to see that certain cities globally have committed that this access is going to be available. And so in searching around, I came across the fact that Kirkland, the city of Kirkland, has free Wi-Fi through this Google grant. And so I thought I would just bring it up to the council, just more for a topic of awareness and maybe thought and discussion. Is that something that the city could do to, not only support our students, but also support the residents and the tourists and the businesses in our community to have access to the internet provided by the community?
So we had this really fun topic come up recently called small cell towers. And I don't know if we're already done with that discussion, but we basically, I think, had to amend. No, we're not done with that discussion? You don't want me to talk about this, do you? I'm getting the look from the city attorney about this one. But perhaps, just me personally, not speaking on behalf of the city or the city attorney, that we do have franchise agreements with cell phone service providers, and they want to put a lot of these little towers all over the place. And maybe part of that could be you provide free access to low-income families, or access to the computers in which the school district provides. So we'll just keep. I should probably shut up now because he's probably he's gonna kill me.
These are the kind of open-ended kind of conversations that bring up different ideas. So thank you. That was the point.
Okay. The city manager wanted to try to clean up on aisle 2 because of me. Go ahead.
So a couple things. Those Google grants are very, very competitive. I've gone for them before in other cities. It's something very exciting for communities to be able to compete for. Something we could potentially look into, but just so you know, it's really competitive. We are just starting our 2019-2020 discussion about our IT needs, which are quite substantial. Last year, the council put in over $1 million because many of our software packages, like our finance package, was over 15 years old. But it's the perfect timing to start to have these kinds of discussions and to see if there's some opportunities, maybe to start small and have a small project in a key spot. So I will add that to the list as we have the discussion.
Thank you.
Councilmember McNeil.
Yeah, interestingly, the city of Auburn has a big push right now to ensure that every child that goes to school in the Auburn School District has access to internet so that they all have an equity and inclusion system for internet access. So I think it would be fabulous to ensure that every child in the Northshore School District, not just in the city of Bothell, but in the entire Northshore School District had access to that. I was curious about you guys were talking about a computer or something, or a one-to-one. Can you talk a little bit about that, what that is?
Sure. So just, it's not, we're going to hand every child a laptop. What we want to make sure is that we have enough devices that in a classroom, if a teacher needs to, or the lesson is appropriate for using a device, that they're available, that they're not on a wait list or having to go get a cart in a different room or so forth. All of our testing, state testing, is now on devices. So we're calling it one-to-one, but it's not going to look like every child's going to come home with a laptop in their backpack. And it will be age-appropriate devices, so early elementary, maybe more looking at iPads. High school, again, a variety of types of devices are needed. Most high school, middle school, and high school work can be done on something like a Chromebook, because they're just accessing the internet or Google Docs, so forth. But we're also going to need the more heavy-duty devices, if you will, for our robotics, CAD, computer programming classes.
So these devices will be available to the students as needed. So if they're being assigned programs or curriculum that's going to be designed around having that, they will have access to it.
Yes.
Myself, personally, I can afford to make sure that my child has that, but my concern would be those families that can't afford to do that, to provide those devices to their kids. So,
And the ideal would be that any child that does not have access to a device at home, or there's only one and multiple people are trying to share it, that they would be able to check one out and take it home.
fabulous. And do these have the capabilities of Wi-Fi built into them, so they just need internet access, or?
Is part of the conversation, is that we would not send a child home with a device and then they can't use it. So it's all part of this big picture of how do we make sure that every child has a device and access.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
Anybody else on the technology Wi-Fi topic? Come on, Councilman Reagan, you're into this.
I'd just like to add, I notice when you go to take the kids to the public library, if you want to look at need and demand, there are a lot of families and a lot of kids on those computers doing homework, obviously because they don't have access at home. So I know the King County library system is overwhelmed, and that's whether it's in Kirkland or Woodinville or Bothell, it doesn't matter where, but it just shows the need that's really out there.
Do we have free Wi-Fi here in this building? Okay. I'll leave that at that so I don't get glared at by the city attorney again. Okay, so we got access to Wi-Fi. Is there anything else on that? We're good? I think we down to the, no, I think that's the end of your list. Was there anything else that came to mind? You guys ready to get out of here?
I'll just say thank you once again for a great working relationship. We really are very pleased that we're able to come to you and talk, basically, about what's going on and what our needs are, and hear your questions, and you can hear ours.
Well, I'm sure you guys have time to watch our council meetings, so I don't know why. I watch your board meetings all the time. Just kidding. We're all so busy. Deputy Mayor, do you have something you want to add?
So he doesn't doesn't let you get a second round, and I always think of something after everyone's spoken. So I had a couple things that I just wanted to touch base on. One of the things that came up in Canyon Park that you won't see, I imagine we can forward you the Canyon Park master plan to date, what we've got, but one of the things that came up was companies requesting or wanting field space, and my first thought was, SAS doesn't have field space either. And so that's just one of the things where I think that would be great for you to be involved in that planning. The second thing I was thinking of is human services grants. So I know last year the school district applied for hang time dollars from us, and we awarded some, but then the hang time went away. But I want to remind you, as the homeless issue has come up that's near and dear to my heart, there are human services grants available. You can apply for them through the city of Bothell. And so that's something to think about. And then the last thing that forward thinking, but the last thing I was thinking about in terms of school funding and whatnot is there any push at all to change the impact fees surrounding multifamily? Because I think as we continue to grow and single family housing is less and less affordable, you're going to start missing out on those impact fees. And I know that families live in apartment buildings. And so that was another thing that I thought I'd mention.
We're working on that calculation right now. And if it's possible for us to do that, we plan to do that.
Great. Thank you. That was it.
Councilmember McNeil.
Round two.
This is why I don't allow second rounds, just so you guys know.
But I appreciate you letting me do it. First of all, thank you for everything you do. As you know, I have a couple little ones that go through the school district, and I applaud the Northshore School District. I'm 100% supportive. I hear a lot about other school districts, but I'm very proud that my kids attend the Northshore School District. We've talked a little bit about fields and stuff like that. I want to talk about opportunities for our communities, not just Bothell, but Woodinville, Kenmore, the North Shore community, the kids that go to the schools, and making sure that we find opportunities to provide before, after, during the summer months, camps, things like that, utilizing the facilities. I don't know how that comes about, but I think that's a conversation that needs to be had on how we can get these youth into the schools, like the gyms, on the fields for camps and things like that, to keep them here locally here. There's a lot of families that can't afford to send their kids to camps in Bellevue and Kirkland. So maybe the school district can work, and maybe we can find a way to work together to make that happen. But there's a lot of need to have places for kids to go locally here within the community of Bothell and the North Shore School District. The fields, anything that we can do to help that. Me personally, this is speaking for me personally, not as a council member. The kids go to school during the day. They need to have a place to play when they're at school during the day. There's huge opportunity to partner with, again, other groups outside of that. So love to make sure that we keep that conversation going. The last thing I'll say is on the equity inclusion piece. I don't know what the statistics are, but I will tell you that I've heard some alarming things coming out of kids in elementary schools right now with the tone of talk and things like that, things that are being said amongst the kids. So let's make sure that we pay close attention to those conversations, because I don't want to say on the dais some of the words that I've heard come out of some of the elementary kids' mouths, but it's stuff that I heard in the 70s when I went to school. So I don't know what the dynamic is, what's going on, but I think that we need to pay close attention, and the programs like Watchdog and things like that I think will help us. But let's make sure that we're definitely paying attention to that. And I'd love to speak to you offline about what I've heard as well about that. So thank you.
Anybody else that have closing comments, or we can let these people go? No? Councilmember Agnew.
I think, excuse me, Councilmember McNeil would definitely like to talk to you about an aquatic center. That's near and dear to his heart, and I think he's looking forward for something. So talk to the man down there.
So I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time. I know you're very busy. You guys have a regular jobs just like we do, and right? Am I right about that? You guys have it's a volunteer job, but just basically you get a stipend. And so thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I do feel the same way too. Like when I see you guys at events and things too, we check in as well. But I mean, anytime that you guys see an opportunity that the city can coordinate or collaborate with you guys or anything, just let us know. And well, I'm sure we'll respond kindly. So, well, at least some people will, but maybe not others. I will. So, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. You guys have a good evening. So, where were we? Visitor comments. There we are. Councilmember. Oh, look at that. Okay, council committee reports. Councilmember McCullough, if you'd like to kick us off.
Thank you. I do have 2 reports, and I want to report first on the Downtown Action Committee, which was in March. And I want to say that Tori, our assistant manager, did an excellent job of really presenting what the update for Main Street was, getting a volunteer group to come forward and help with the grand opening. And people were really engaged, and so they're hoping for, let's see, early May or late April to see a committee. So it was very well done. The only thing I would say was that we've given a waiver to people who want to have permits for outdoor dining, and that was a waiver of the fee up until March 15th because of the process we're going through with the street and things not being completed. I'd like to see, and so would the people like to see, a longer period of time for that public, for them to be able to apply for public use for the restaurants and other people to use that space. So March 15th is the date that they now have, but I've spoken to our city manager as well, and I know they're aware that we should probably extend the waiver of the fee for a bit longer. So that was the Downtown Action Committee, and they will meet once a month, and thank you very much because we get to do it now in City Hall, which is really important. The second one is even more interesting because it's the Park and Rec meeting for the naming of Wayne Golf Course. So it's kind of interesting. I was pretty impressed with the way our tourism and events coordinator, Danae McGee, kind of presided over that meeting, and John Jacobs, the board president also of the Park and Rec Foundation. They did a really good job of bringing forward kind of what were the most popular names that were selected. So I will tell you that I know it's very difficult to read, but here you all have the input from our citizens. And it's pretty interesting if you read the input from the citizens because there's some very interesting historical messages about who the Wayne family was, which we didn't ever know. So they're in here. And also, I want to say that another really loud voice was for Redfish Park. So if you look at the meeting and what happened at that meeting, Redfish Park came out with 57 votes. But if you also look here on this document, the input from the community was 55 votes for Wayne Park. So I think, the council is going to have to really look at public input plus the Parks and Recs input. And both of them are pretty compelling. The veterans was pretty low. That's about 12. Willow Park was 13. Let's see, so really 12 was for Sammamish River Park. But the real 2 presiding ones were Wayne Park and Redfish Park. So that's in your hands. That's my report.
And yeah, we're taking that up in a couple weeks, I believe. Yeah, okay. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to clarify that it was actually Tracy Burkowski, our interim Parks and Rec director.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. She did a great job. It was a complicated process, a lot of people, a lot of entries, and so.
There were
she's
50
the one who
people.
Presided over the meeting.
So did you have a response to the extension, or is that a council action that needs to occur to extend the application period? Or?
I'll need to look into whether it
Okay.
needs to be formal or not.
Okay.
The idea behind having the deadline was the fact we were trying to be efficient so that the crews would only need to come out once with the trucks, and it wasn't application by application, so it's a tremendous amount of manpower to come out and put the bollards in, but we'll talk about that.
Okay.
I think that's very doable.
Okay, great. Any other council committee reports? Deputy Mayor?
I have two reports, brief ones with, so the Transportation Policy Board met March 8th, and there were two main discussions. One was the Regional Transportation Plan Update public comment summary. So staff reviewed, tried to review what the themes of public comments, and what was really interesting to me is that the toll, there were a number of comments about tolls, and the toll anti and pro were just about even. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm happy if anyone wants to hear more, but I won't go into all the comments. And then the second piece was the coordination with the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency on the 4-part greenhouse gas strategy. And I just want people to know that the Transportation Policy Board and PSRC work very closely with the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. And for anyone who thinks that there's no such thing as climate change, I assure you, the numbers that they report are staggering and frightening. And then on East Side Transportation Partnership, we had a discussion about the regional competition for Federal Highway Administration money. So basically, when we get money, we get two pots, and this time it's around $52 million for each pot. One goes to the counties, the 4 counties in the PSRC region, which is Kitsap, Snohomish, King, and Pierce. And the counties have a competition and decide. And then the other piece is the regional competition, and that's amongst the regional growth centers within that 4-county area. So what's important to note is we have a regional growth center. We almost lost it. For the East Side Transportation Partnership, we're allowed to submit 5 projects for the King County competition, which gets 12 spots in that competition. So within the partnership, they picked 5. There are 2 projects from Bellevue, one in Kirkland, one in Renton, and one in Redmond. They made mention of Bothell, and Bothell didn't submit because I guess we didn't feel that we were competitive. However, because we belong in 2 counties, Snohomish County is actually submitting 2 Bothell projects for money. And even though one of them is in King County. So they've submitted 527, the widening of 527 for that competition, as well as North Creek Trail, I think it's phase 4. And so those are the only 2, I believe, the only 2 projects this time around, and they're both from Bothell, so they're not likely to be taken out of the competition. So that's really good news for us, and I thought it would be interesting for people to understand our strategy. So we also went over foundations of growth management planning and population forecasts and Vision 2050. And Councilmember McNeil made reference to this, but we're currently working on the scope of work. The Puget Sound Regional Council is, and that's where the person giving the presentation said past projections have proven accurate within 2 percentage points. I think that's phenomenal, and I think it also lends itself to us really sharing that information with our constituents, because right now the forecast is for 830 new households between 2018 and 2050 in King County alone. Oh, no, sorry, King, Snohomish, Kitsap, and Pierce counties, and 1.5 million new jobs by 2050. So past predictions have proven to come within 2 percentage points. So we need to be paying attention to what they're forecasting, because it's enormous. And then I attended the Snohomish County Cities Forum where they gave a legislative update, and I'm going to let my fellow council member who attended and took notes cover that. So Councilmember Zorns.
You're very trusting. So I'll just do some highlights because AWC came and did they hit the ground running with everything that happened in Olympia. So I'll try to go with the highlights that stood out for me. One is something that Mayor Rayum is probably keenly aware of, is that the state has $4 million available for cities to unblock culverts for salmon. And that's money that cities can be applying for. Also, there was some legislative action on compensation for both fire and police, and they changed definitions and included more presumptive diseases, so things that you had are long-term are now covered. So that will, I'm sure our fire and police are going to be tracking that. Small cells is going to be on the table next year. They haven't come up with any definitive action on that. And then homelessness, a lot of information on that, but I thought this stat really stood out, that there are more opioid overdoses than car crashes in this state, and that's pretty significant. LTAC did not meet because we still need a hotel to be part of the picture, so we're waiting for LTAC to get going on that. And then CTC met, and did you go to the, I have some highlights here off of Kelly's notes for the campus and city and community, and you add to them. I'll look at what her notes are. I missed that meeting. One is that there's a sidewalk that's going to be broken in on Beardsley Boulevard. That goes under construction in June. And that's going to be near the fire station. And I think they're talking about another crosswalk. And their experiment with a shuttle bus came to a close. They're going to experiment with a valet on campus for the first 3 weeks of the quarter. And then there's design permits, designing going in place for Cascadia and U of W Bothell, and those are the highlights that I can speak to.
Councilman Agnew.
Thank you. We had the Regional Services and Initiatives Subcommittee meeting today. We talked in the last meeting about regional services that we want to pretend or to continue, and this time we talked about the initiatives that we want to bring out in the next levy. And the next levy, for anyone that doesn't really know, it's the Medic One levy that comes up every 6 years and is basically to fund BLS, which is basic life support, and ALS, which is Medic One services. So some of the strategic initiatives are, we've just completed a regional record management system. So every fire district now uses the same software to gather their information and to send it to the hospitals, and that was huge. We hope that we're going to get enough data out of that to move a couple other things forward. We talked about basic life support, QI, and training, and how we need to morph the training because of the needs for the fire departments. In the past, we didn't have what we call academy classes, which is a short EMT class for firefighters that we picked up from other areas that were EMTs elsewhere. So now we're working on that. They want to look at the vulnerable populations to see what we can do about them. We want to look specifically at homelessness. We want to look at mental health issues. We want to look at the Somalian issues. We want to look at a number, the vulnerable aging people that are like me that are out there. So, you know, we've got to look at some of this. 10,000 boomers are retiring every day, so there's going to be more and more of us. We talked about BLS efficiencies, and one of the things that we're going to try to do is kind of have a quartermaster system to where all the fire departments in this county can just call somebody and say, hey, I want to order this. So we all order from the same area. We can get some cost effectiveness issues from that, and that'll be nice. We talked about efficiencies and evaluation studies. We had a study that was done down in South King or Federal Way area, and they initially started it just a fall study for elderlies to see how they could help it out, and it morphed into a lot more because then they found out that there was medical issues, and they found out that there was other issues, and that morphed into what we call as a CMT program, or a step down. Instead of sending the fire unit, for the most part, an aid car, if dispatch dictates it, we can send 2 firefighters in a Suburban to just go out and check on the people and see how they're doing. And that's going to decrease some of the calls that we have. It's going to help out in other ways. We also have tax voucher or taxi cab vouchers, and we're thinking about, well, would Uber be better than taxi cab vouchers? Would that be more cost effective? Because some people, they have to go to the hospital, but they don't need a $600 ambulance bill or another bill from someone else. So we're looking at trying to do that. It's a great group of folks. There's probably 20 to 30 of them. Most are either electeds or fire chiefs or battalion chiefs in the region. All are very active. I'm very passionate about this. This has been my life calling for most of my adult life, you know. So I think we're going in the right direction. I think it's going to be really good. You know, the nice thing about initiatives is we'll put these out there and we'll start them at the beginning of a levy process, and then we reevaluate them annually. You know, are we getting the results we need with this? You know, if we're not getting the results, do we tweak it another way to get the results we need? Or is it achieving the results? You know, one of the initiatives that we did years ago was just as simple as, we call it dipsticking, but looking at somebody's blood sugar. What we are hoping to achieve is diagnosing diabetics early on. And if we could diagnose them early on, I think we'll decrease medical costs later in their lives. And that's the premise of this. When we initially started doing it, we actually found out that we had about 100 firefighters that were diabetics that didn't know it. They were out in the street working every day. You know, so hopefully a lot of these things will improve the care that we have. And we have one of the best EMS systems in the world here. Our resuscitation rate is about 64% if we find somebody in ventricular fibrillation, where if you go to Detroit, it's about 2. So we're doing pretty good. Most people look for us for some answers. And hopefully with the studies and efficiencies that we're going to be doing, we'll have some of the answers for them.
Did you say you're chairing that meeting at 20 to 30 people?
Did I say that? Yes, I am.
Wow. Bless your heart. That's not that you guys are hard to deal with, but Councilmember McAuliffe?
So I find that very compelling and interesting, that early diagnosis. If you talk about diabetes, you also can talk about early diagnosis of cardiac arrest in young people. So maybe, and this might be something you could offer, it would be good if a city sometimes had a kind of an opportunity for young people and older people to come to kind of do some evaluation of their health. Because Nick of Time, have you heard of Nick of Time? Okay, so Nick of Time was founded by a mother whose son died of sudden cardiac arrest on the field in the Bothell area in football. And she started Nick of Time. So they go with doctors and nurses and volunteers to high school. So I visited Inglemoor High School when they did theirs. They do teach kids CPR. They do an evaluation of their heart. They go all, so could take them to the echo chamber if they need further evaluation, and send them to the doctor. Out of 200 kids, they generally get about 4 or 5 kids that need to go to a heart specialist. This prevents young people from having sudden cardiac arrest on the fields. So sometimes maybe a medical clinic where families can come in, early diagnosis can happen, they get time, we join that.
Yeah, basically what you're talking about is what's called prolonged QT syndrome. And adolescents get that when they exercise to where their heart speeds up enough to where their heart can't recover enough. And then they go into what's called ventricular fibrillation. And to make that differential diagnosis, it's an in-depth process. You got to do a 12-lead EKG, got to do some blood work and things along those lines. That was one of the emphasis of putting defibrillators on the high schools and the junior highs, is we were finding kids that did that. And, it's atypical for a 16-year-old to go into a sudden cardiac arrest. So there had to be an abnormality there somewhere, and it's usually an electrophysiological abnormality of their heart. And yeah, if we can make those differential diagnoses early on, that's gonna save a lot of lives.
All right, Councilmember McNeil.
Yeah, just have a quick update on PIC this month. So something, we talked about the, actually I got the wrong report here, I apologize. Came up wrong. So this month's PIC, we talked about the regional growth centers. They kept their same designation. The recommendation was to keep the same designation, so that was good. One of the things that came out of the meeting at PIC was that they potentially may change the structure to where if you're not moving forward in a timely manner with your master planning, that it may change at the end of 5 years. So make sure that if you're planning for it, you continue to plan for it so they don't take you off that list. Deanna Dawson, president of SCA, had an interesting comment about China. China has banned all waste mixed paper. And it is the biggest ban out of any country ever. And so they're watching it closely, and hopefully it's not something they're going to start doing in the United States. We had an update on the Affordable Housing Task Force, talking about how many units we need to have by the year 2040. A staggering number of affordable housing units needs to be built. I don't quite know how to say this number and with a straight face, but they say that we need to build in our region 244,000 affordable housing units by the year 2040. And if you just took the numbers across the 38 cities in King County, I think you'd find that each city would be building thousands of affordable units. I think we might be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 affordable housing units in the city of Bothell. 6,000 houses. I don't know what we currently have, but if we have 44,000 current residents, that's an exorbitant amount of houses for our area. So I don't know how we quite get to that. The deputy mayor alluded to the 830,000 housing units that need to be built to accommodate 1.8 million more people by the year 2050. So there's definitely an issue there, and there's a conversation that's starting to happen. Brief conversation around the E911 strategic plan, and that's to unify the 911 call-in dispatch center. Future ballot measures and levies. City of Renton is going to put forward a parks levy coming up. King County is going to have affordable housing levy. They're going to be passing a Medic One EMS renewal. Regional parks, possible regional parks levy in 2019. The land conservation initiative that the committee had met on might be put on hold at this point to kind of get a gauge and feel for how communities are doing. 2021 Best Starts for Kids renewal will be coming up again, potentially. Let me see here. Yeah, let's see. We talked briefly about the metro parking pilot projects. There was a brief update from Seashore a few months back where they talked about the pilot program where you can pay to park at the park and rides. There hasn't been a lot of use of that as of yet. but they're hoping once the marketing gets out there that it starts to take off. And what that is where you can actually buy a permit to park at a park and ride, but you have to be carpooling to buy that permit. And so there's a little bit of concern that program is not very equitable, because what will wind up happening is people who can't afford to park there anyway are going to be put out by that program. So there's more to come on that pilot program. Let's see. And that was pretty much it. There's a networking dinner that's going to be taking place on April 4th at the Renton Pavilion. So that's the next upcoming dinner. They're looking for somebody to do for the good of the order, or did you know about a city program? I've often thought about the Navigator program. We're hearing more and more about that. But the presentation that you get is about 5 minutes, and I don't know if that would be enough time to do that presentation. But we're super excited to be able to get the Navigator program out there. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the upcoming Regional Law and Safety Justice Committee. So that's my report.
Councilmember Olson, you're the only one we didn't hear from. You okay? Yep. No reports. Okay. All right. So moving on to visitor comment. Visitor comment. Excuse me. Each person addressing the council will give his or her name in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless the council grants further time, shall limit the address to 3 minutes. No person other than the council and the person having the floor will be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a member of the council, without the permission of the mayor. And the first and only person we have, thank you for staying with us if you are still here, Whitney Maidenbauer. Go ahead and come up to the podium.
Hi, my name is Whitney Negebauer, and I am a Bothell resident. I work at Evergreen Karate and Jiu-Jitsu on Main Street, and I'm also the director of a small nonprofit called Whale Scout. Today, I'd like to provide comment on 3 topics. First, I'd like to comment on the naming of Bothell's newest park, the former Wayne Golf Course, and deliver kids' letters and drawings to the City Council and the clerk. For some background, in the early part of 2018, the city began the naming process for the new park. Name suggestions were accepted from the public, and on March 8th, the Parks and Recreation Board was tasked with making name recommendations for the City Council for a decision at the April 3rd meeting, coming up in 2 weeks from today. Their recommendations were Redfish Park, Willow Peoples Park, Lachute Seed Park, and One Bothell Park, in order of names of the votes from the public and the Parks Board. Myself, along with many others in the community, including local residents, naturalists, scientists, historians, and school kids, are in support of the name Redfish Park. When most people hear redfish, salmon come to mind. They're arguably the single greatest icon of the Pacific Northwest. The Sammamish River being host to sockeye, coho, and Chinook salmon, the name gives credit for these amazing fish. However, there's another redfish, a small landlocked cousin of the sockeye salmon, which played a profound role in the lives of Bothell's earliest inhabitants, such as the Willow people. Today we know these fish as kokanee. They're similar in appearance to sockeye with bright red coloration during spawning, but they're significantly smaller, spending their whole life cycle in fresh water, never traveling to the ocean to feed. Interestingly, these smaller redfish, the term redfish being the direct translation from Native American Lachute seed, were repeatedly described in texts as a significant food source over the larger Pacific salmon. Today I'm delivering letters and drawings from kids at Evergreen Karate and Jiu-Jitsu to the council describing their own personal reasons for supporting the name Redfish Park. I hope you will enjoy their creativity and passion in helping name a park in their hometown. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Age 4 to 13 years, I've worked with many of these kids inside and outside the school, sharing outdoor conservation and restoration activities with their families. They've volunteered at numerous work parties with North Creek Forest, have gone salmon watching along North Creek Forest, or North Creek. My second comment is in support of signing off on the Chinook Salmon Conservation Plan. The Puget Sound Partnership, along with Governor Inslee and numerous partners, are collectively working to accelerate Chinook recovery in light of the record decline in endangered salmon-eating killer whales. I encourage the city to lend a hand in this effort and stand prepared with Whale Scout volunteers and martial arts students to offer volunteer support. And lastly, I thank you for taking a second look at the traffic impact fees, which have limited small businesses along Main Street. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If there's nobody else signed up, would anybody else like to provide public comment? No, anybody? Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, go ahead and give your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Karina File, and I'm actually a parent of the Northshore School District with 2 kids in the district. And I'm actually a Kenmore citizen, but I was here supporting our school board tonight. And I want to thank you for many of the comments and the work you've been doing in collaboration with the district and supporting of families, and especially our diverse family needs of the community. But one of the things they talked about tonight was about the technology use and how technology impacts our families when our kids are home and maybe they have access or don't have access. You know, having a single parent family or a home where you don't have internet access at home can be, you know, difficult things to overcome. And I can be really honest and say I am a single parent family. At one point we had 1 computer at home, and I had a high school student and an ATP student. And it was exhausting to try to accommodate both homework schedules. And in a nice phone call to the district, I was able to secure a laptop for my son so he could be able to keep up with the robotics class he's currently taking at school. And that's wonderful because it also has supportive dyslexia software on it, which is something my son has. I heard some mention about small cell technology. Small cell, smart cell technology is going to be really important to incoming businesses of the future, especially those technology businesses that bring in company future works like robotics and things like that. With that sensing technology, that's what our newer cars are being developed with, and that's what our robotics and higher technology parameters are growing into. Our district has a harassment, intimidation, and bullying committee that's just formed, and there's opportunity to weigh in, kind of get involved in there, or if there are concerns with the district diversity and equity committee opportunities, excuse me. If there are some concerns of the city for diversity and equity, those are some things that our diversity and equity committee can actually start working on. And we are working now. And so you can actually reach out to Chris Bigelow, Dr. Chris Bigelow, and he will put our teams to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to provide? Go ahead, come up and give your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Spanton, and I'm a Bothell resident, and I'm here tonight to thank you for looking at the traffic impact fees for the downtown corridor. I myself found myself about a year and a half ago looking to open a small business in the Main Street area, and you know, worked with the city planning department for over a year and got a lot of support for my proposed business and spent a lot of money and time working on it. And then when we came to looking at a location and looking at the lease, I was going to be hit with a $300,000 traffic impact fee because of the change of use going from a furniture store to a cafe. And it was very upsetting because, you know, I'm a small business owner, a local family, member of the community. I have kids in this area, and it was important for me to want to open a business in my own community. I care about the city of Bothell. If I opened that store, it would be somebody that would care about the city around them, as opposed to somebody with a lot of money, a corporation, maybe from out of town, out of state, because they're the only ones that can afford that impact fee. So I do commend you for looking at that and taking some action on reducing that impact fee so that small business owners, small community, you know, owners can thrive in this area. And we look at Main Street and some of the businesses that are changing hands with all the change happening, that there are going to be a lot of change of use in all the zonings that's going to be going on. And, you know, so just wanted to make my piece there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else with public comment? All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes pulled. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All
I'll
right,
second.
It's
I'll
moved by
second.
Councilmember Agnew, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Seeing none, go ahead, place your vote. Passes unanimously. We had the minutes pulled for March 6, 2018. Deputy Mayor, you have the floor.
So on page 16 of, it describes the changes to code amendments, and under 6, number 6, code amendments to the development review lien process initiated except for item B was removed. And in the minutes, it says item B is signposting requirements for wireless permits. However, in the docket, that was actually the change from 5 to 9 in a small plat review, and that was the one that was removed. So that's it. I'm not sure what happened. I guess there's actually G in the docket, and then in the minutes it only goes through F, so it just got skipped.
Okay, so do you have an amendment you'd like to see to the minutes?
Okay. I would like to amend the minutes to read initiated except for B, which was removed, and have B correctly state that it's the small plat, the change to small plat from 5 to 9 that was removed. And then I think everything else, if you reorder C being signposting down through, it'll be correct. So can I say?
I'll second that.
Sorry, that wasn't very
I got it.
cogent.
Does everybody understand the change that's being requested on council? Please, staff understands it? Okay. There, Laura understands it. That's the important one. All right. Any discussion on the motion? So it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by the Mayor to change the meeting minutes for March 6th. No discussion. Go ahead, place your vote. Passes unanimously. So I would imagine some of us up here are ready for a break. It's already 8 o'clock. Is everybody ready for a break? All right, so before we get into new business, we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 8:05.